after a few minutes or few seconds. Only I am allowed to record it.
Okay.
Don't do anything with the meeting starting, or just let me know whether it is recording or not. Okay. I think after 20 seconds it is stopped or something like that. This problem was not there previously. Just we will check after some time whether it is recording or not. But some professors were facing issues with recordings. Like it is happening randomly. Like some of them are facing, like previous classes we did not face any issues, I guess. So, but I have not checked the recording whether it is there entirely or not. So we have to check. But last semester we were like there were no issues. I don't know what they have done this semester. Till now it is going on. Okay. So we were discussing how to know whether boundary conditions are appropriate or not. So this downstream boundary, okay, if we use a constant velocity condition, say we know that far away, so say that the dinosaur is standing steady, it is not moving forward, and there is a wind velocity of 10 meter per second, like normal velocity of 10 meter per second. Okay, let us check again. Still it is going on. You can still see the slides. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can see the slide.
Okay, so say the dinosaur is standing still and there is a velocity of 10 meter per second, in normal velocity, far away from the dinosaur, like in the direction of the, like from the left to the right. So if I put the boundary condition as 10 meter per second on the left side, I have to put it sufficiently far away from the actual object, actual dinosaur. If it is too close, like for example, in this case, it is too close. Okay, what will happen? You will see that the vectors near here, they are not exactly 10 meter per second. We are forcing the velocity to be 10 meter per second on the left side, but suddenly they have to change to some other values because they find an obstruction in front. Okay, so our boundary condition is not accurate in this case. But say if the left boundary was very far away, so somewhere around here, okay, so then the flow would have evolved smoothly from 10 meter per second to whatever is the velocity here. It would have had sufficient distance for the velocity to evolve accurately. Okay. Similarly, for the downstream region, in the downstream region, I can give different boundary conditions. I can give outflow condition. We will study about these boundary conditions later on. What is outflow? But we can give something like outflow condition. For that case, this is okay. But if I want to give far away condition, like we know that far away, very far away from the dinosaur, there won't be any effect, right? So velocity should be 10 meter per second, very far away, because normal velocity is 10 meter per second, where there is no object. So in that case, this boundary condition, this boundary very near to this tail is not accurate, because if we force the velocity to be 10 meter per second here, drastically the velocity has to change from some other value to 10 meter per second, and the velocity here will won't be accurate. So if we have the boundary very far away, say 10 times the object distance or 20 times the distance of the object, then the calculation will be more accurate. But we will have a very large domain. Okay, and there are some thumb rules for those. So for example, flow over a cylinder, typically you need a large distance to accurately capture the vortex shading phenomena. So 20 times the cylinder diameter or 50 times the cylinder diameter. Okay, not 1 or 2 times the cylinder diameter. Typically you have to take a very large distance so that you can accurately capture the phenomena. So boundary conditions is another important aspect. So we have to judge after solving the problem. Also we can check whether the initial boundary conditions were correct or not. Similarly, we can also check with different grid sizes. For example, if we have divided the domain into 100 parts, we can again divide the domain into 200 parts. and check whether there is any change in the results or not. If there is significant change, we can say that no, the results are not correct. It is depending on the number of grid points. Okay. So we have to check again, go to a finer grid, say 400 grid points. Again, we have to check whether the results are changing or not. So after sufficiently refining, you will see that the results do not change much. Okay. So this is known as grid convergence. We will study also these things in future. So we have to check all these things after solving. Okay. In many cases we do not do, but the idea is that we should check all these things. But with experience, you will see that you will understand that okay, the results are correct. We don't have to check many of these things. So it depends on experience. Okay. So we have stopped at that point. So let us also discuss what are the applications of CFD. Okay, just I will give a quick overview of what are the applications. So there are many applications of CFD. Okay, many industries actually nowadays CFD has become very important. Okay, so whenever I am saying CFD, it means the same as computational methods in thermal
Sir,
and fluid
I have a
engineering.
question, sir.
Yes, yes,
Sir, when you told about grid generation, don't
yes.
we have a particular method? Like, for example, if we have a time step, then this is the minimum length of the grid point, minimum length of an element.
Good point. It depends on what type of
Scheme.
like what type of algorithm we are going to use. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so like just a second. Okay, can I know who is asking the question?
Sir, this is Nikhilesh.
Okay, okay. So yes, it's a good point. So it will depend on, say for example, you have already done the CFD course. So I will just discuss for the benefit of others. So for example, there are different methods like explicit methods and implicit methods. Okay. So this we will discuss all these methods later on. But for explicit methods, there are stringent conditions for grid size. Okay. So depending on the time step, actually the opposite is true. Depending on the grid size, you have the time step. But for some reason, say the time step is fixed, then you have some upper boundary, some lower boundary of the grid size. Okay. You cannot go beyond this lower boundary. Otherwise, the problem will become unstable. Many other methods are there, for which case there is more flexibility in terms of the grid size. Okay. For example, again, if I go back to our example of this one, and if we use an implicit scheme, okay, we may take a very coarse grid. Even better was the bottle filling problem. I think this problem. Okay. So we can take, say, only 5 divisions along the height. That will still give us some result which will be physically consistent. If our algorithm is correct, our result will be physically consistent. There are two things. Okay, we will discuss this in subsequent classes. One is physical consistency, second is accuracy. Both are not same. Physical consistency means the results have similar behavior as the actual results. Means in actual case, if you solve a problem, you pour some liquid and the liquid enters this bottle, the behavior of the liquid, whatever we obtain, like whether the temperature is increasing or decreasing, whether the flow velocity is in the downward direction or it is in the upward direction, this thing should be correctly predicted even with a very coarse grid. Okay, this is known as physical consistency. The other thing is accuracy. Accuracy means what percentage of error we are encountering while solving the problem. So the accuracy will deteriorate if we have very coarse grid. If I have only 5 divisions, we may have 20% error. But if I have 100 divisions along this direction, we may have only 0.1% error. Okay. But in both cases, the solution will be physically consistent if our algorithm is correct. Means it predicts that the flow is in the downward direction, temperature is increasing, things like that are true. Okay. So this again, so as you have asked, very good point actually. So it will depend on the solution algorithm, and also basically depending on the solution algorithm, some algorithms will give us correct solution even for, correct means physically consistent solution even for very coarse grid. However, accuracy will be low. Some other algorithms will not run at all for coarse grid. It will just blow up. Means the solution will become some random new values, like say value will increase to something like million, then billion, then infinity, something like that, or temperature will go to a negative in Kelvin, which is not at all physically correct. Okay, so it depends on the solution algorithm that we are using. But some problems we can use very coarse grid. You can take we will see some problems in the subsequent classes, like one dimensional conduction problem, where if we take only 4 grid points, also 4 control volumes, then also we get accurate results, somewhat accurate results. It depends on the problem also, how complex is the problem. Okay, so actually another point that now I remember. So depending on the problems, so some regions may have very complex flow pattern. Okay, I will go to the dinosaur problem. See these regions near the object, near the dinosaur. Here there is sharp gradient in flow, means rapid change in velocity is occurring. So here if I use a coarse grid, say my entire grid is like this, like the entire control volume is one control volume like this. So obviously you cannot capture this flow pattern here, because there is, in the actual real case, there is sharp change in velocity. But if I have a single control volume, it's like a single pixel. It will just give a only single velocity. So wherever there is large changes, large gradients, I need very fine mesh or very fine grid or very fine, very small size of control volumes. Okay. So now if you say, you can say that if I have very small control volumes here, and if I want to use like a regular control volume, like the control volume size is fixed everywhere, then everywhere I need to use the fine control volume. Okay, so these are some of the limitations of using regular control volume. So we will study later that we can also use irregular control volume, or we can use regular control volume, but where the size changes. Okay, so here we have very small control volumes, far away we have very large control volumes. So these are also some important points. So far away nothing is happening, nothing much is happening. So I can take a very large control volume and still the solution will be accurate to a very high degree. Okay. So very good point. Our recording is still going on. I think it's still going on. Okay, so what are the applications? Various industries nowadays have changed focus to more CFD type of problems. So there are different groups which are working on CFD aspects, like solution of so design. Basically, you want to design an aircraft. Previously, the design was done based on prototypes. You had to do some calculations, then develop a prototype type, study it in wind tunnel. Okay, that is very costly. So nowadays, when you design a aircraft, you basically design each of these parts using CAD models, then pass the CAD model to a CFD team. The CFD team studies the flow pattern, studies what is the lift, what is the drag, things like that, what is the temperature change, and then they again pass back the results to the design team. Then based on the result, the design team will do more iterations. They will modify the design slightly so that we get higher lift, lower drag, things like that. Okay. So after going through lot of iterations, you can refine the solution. Then only you go for prototype development and final experimentation. So finally there will be experiments, because directly based on CFD you cannot trust the CFD solution to the extent that directly based on CFD you develop a final object. Okay, you have to do experiments, but you can reduce the number of experiments by an order of magnitude by using CFD. So CFD has become very important in many of the organizations. Okay, particularly for our context, for context of India, where experimental facilities are not good in the companies, there is lot of stress on CFD problems. So what happens? Lot of these multinational companies, they do their experimental work abroad, like in US or Europe, and pass on the CFD work to the CFD teams in India. So if you are part of such a team, you will be working with the experimental team in Europe or USA. So and there will be like you will pass the data, CFD data to them, they will pass the experimental data to you. Like this, there is collaboration between the offshore team and the Indian team, which is which is sitting somewhere in Bangalore or say Mumbai. Okay. So this is the standard practice nowadays. So what are the domains? Aerospace is one of the most important applications of CFD. Okay. Aerospace means for aircraft applications as well as for say space applications like ISRO or other space organizations, NASA or SpaceX. Okay. So all of them have big CFD groups, and we need to do a lot of CFD study. So there are different aspects of aerospace: flow over the wings, lift, drag, then flow through the gas turbines, so or flow from the rocket engines. All this needs to be studied. Not only there, whatever is the flow circulation inside the aircraft, okay, cooling, how the cooling is occurring, whether the oxygen circulation is sufficient or not, recirculation of air, recirculation of air, sorry. So all these are very important. Okay, so this is one important aspect. Similar to that, automobile is another very important area where a lot of CFD teams are working. Okay, all automobile industries actually have large scale CFD teams. What are the important application? One application is external aerodynamics, means flow over the vehicle. So here you need, so for high-end vehicles, like for high performance cars, you want to have very less drag and very large downforce. Downforce is the opposite of lift, means force towards the downward direction. If you have large downforce, you get more grip from the car, so your turning is easier. Okay, you can turn at higher velocities. The car will not skid at high velocities, and you need less drag. Okay, and you will see in very high performance cars you have spoilers at the end, like some wings are there at the end, which creates additional downforce. Okay, even at the front also you may see some spoil. Generally, it's not present. Only in automobile sports it is present, like wings will be present at the front. Okay, undercarriage aerodynamics, same, similar to, related to this only. So by smoothly or by properly designing the flow under the car, you can create a negative pressure. Okay, as a result the car will stick more to the road surface and less chance of skidding will be there, particularly if say you are driving over hazardous conditions like lot of water or rain flow is occurring or snow is there. Okay, ice formation. In those cases you need very good downforce. So one form of generating the downforce is to properly design the flow below the car so that you get negative pressure, negative gauge pressure, and the car sticks to the bottom of the road. Okay. Interior ventilation is another important area. Engine cooling, this is important. There are other aspects which are very, very important, which I will discuss in the subsequent slides, which are also used in automobile industry, like how the casting is done for these cases, how this material processing is done. All these are also dealt by CFD groups. Okay, so how to improve the properties of the engine block, piston, cylinder assembly, all these things. Okay, how the combustion is occurring in the piston cylinder assembly. So where we will position the spark plug or how the fuel injection should occur. These things are predicted very well by CFD solutions. Please let me know whenever you have any questions. Okay. Similarly, in power generation also, CFD is very important. Okay, power generation, the most important aspects are gas turbines and steam turbines, we know. So how the flow occurs through the gas turbine or steam turbine, how the flow occurs over the steam turbine blades, flow over each individual blade, flow from one stage to the other stage. All these are designed very carefully by the CFD teams. Not only that, there are other applications which I am showing here. Randomly, I have picked from the internet. Okay. So, for example, cooling towers are an important aspect of thermal power plants, as you already know if you have studied power plant engineering. So, how the flow gets out of the cooling tower, that is also important. We may ignore this in normal power plant engineering, but the flow should go out to a very high distance and it should not interfere with the neighboring regions. Okay, so those things also can be studied using CFD. flow through the burner. Burner means, say you have a mixture of coal, pulverized coal, powder coal and air coming in to the combustion chamber, to the main combustion chamber, furnace basically, and how the flow is occurring. So we need lot of turbulence to be there so that there is proper mixing. So how to design the injectors and where to put the spark plugs in those cases, those are also important, can be studied. Similarly, for water turbines also, flow through water turbines. Then wind turbines. Wind turbines have become very important nowadays. Lot of companies are working on wind turbines. So how the power is generated in the wind turbine, how the flow occurs over the wind turbine blades. Okay. Other things like how the gas goes out from the furnace through the chimney. So lot of aspects are there for CFD application in power generation. Excuse me for a second. So I have a throat condition where I cannot continuously speak for a long time. So anyway, so then there are other large scale applications which has become very important nowadays. One is HVAC systems or cooling systems. Okay, cooling of buildings. So now you have lot of buildings which are centrally air conditioned. So how to properly design the central air conditions? So there also we need CFD study, CFD simulations. And even students in our department are also, like MTech students, your senior students are working on similar problems. How to simulate flow around in a building, or say in a server room. So there are large scale server rooms. All these companies like Microsoft or Google will have very large scale rooms where you have thousands and thousands of servers. Okay. Even institutes also, like we do not have here, but say if you go to research institutes like IISc, okay, Indian Institute of Science. So there we have a supercomputer, and if you get a chance to visit there, you will see that there is a large room with hundreds of racks like this. Each of them again contains like 10 or 20 servers. Each server is like a processor. So the entire room has thousands of processors, thousands and thousands of processors. So entire thing is very meticulously cooled. Okay, it is designed so that they can operate at low temperature because the heat generation is very large. So for supercomputers also we need. Then if we come to small scale, like the processor or the graphics card in your computer, and particularly in the laptops. Nowadays laptops have become very versatile, right? You have such a compact form, but you can do such large scale processing in a laptop. I can use very large, very high end graphics card in a laptop, okay, which were not possible previously. So these graphics cards generate huge amount of heat. 200, 300 watt of heat will be generated in a very small size, right? So the heat per unit area is very large, and you need to do CFD study to find out whether there is sufficient cooling or not. So again, many students are doing work like this. Even some of you, like the students who have done the elective CFD course last year, BTech third year students who are part of this course, they have also done some simulations like this. Actually very practical simulations, very useful simulations. So we need to study this. So if we have fins, how the flow occurs over the fins. If we have heat pipes, so you will know that there is something called heat pipes. So how to use those heat pipes. So all the laptops nowadays have heat pipes. Okay. So you remove the heat from the processor directly to the cooling vent, because there is not much gap for a fan. In very small form factor laptops, you cannot use fans. Okay. For large laptops like gaming laptops, you can use fans, but for small form factor laptops, you cannot use fans. Then you need heat pipes, which will remove the heat from the processor or the graphics card directly to the vent, to the outside. Okay, so all these needs to be designed, and there are large groups which are working on the CFD side of these things. Okay, there are hundreds of other applications you can think of. So I'm not going into details. Electronics cooling, actually it is known as electronics cooling, very large area. Similarly, HVAC systems, okay, ventilation and air conditioning system, centralized systems for large buildings. So all these are very important. Another vast area for CFD is material processing. Okay, I am trying to give you a feel of applications so that you know that why this is so important, why you are studying this subject, and also you know that this subject is very important for your placement purpose, because all these companies are working one or other area among these, right? So you need to have a very good understanding of this subject material so that you can get placed in these companies, or you can approach for say off campus placement, and this will help you over your like in the long term also, benefit you in the long term also. So material processing is another important area. So all the designs that are tried. So you want to develop a cylinder block assembly. Okay. So cylinder block assembly means there are say if you have a V8 engine, you have 8 cylinders and 8 pistons. Okay. So or a V6 engine with 6 cylinders. So the entire thing is casted together. Means you have a mold and entire thing is developed together. So you pour liquid. So if it is developed, it is built of aluminium. You pour liquid aluminium into the entire structure, and in a single go you develop the entire cylinder block assembly. Okay, so which will have 6 cylinders for a V6 engine, and pistons you separately cast. Whether it is of aluminum, nowadays it's of aluminium or for lightweight. Okay, and it needs to have very well-designed cooling channels, otherwise the aluminum will melt, because the temperature inside will go to very high temperature, much beyond the melting temperature of aluminum. Okay, so you need to have very high-end cooling systems inside. So all this need. So how this solidification occurs in this mold? These are studied using multiphysics. Like there are numerical solutions for the thermal effect, as well as the phase change and the flow. So flow and thermal effects as well as phase change, all this needs to be studied together. Okay. Similarly, other material processing like welding application. Nowadays, large groups are working. Even in our case also here, for example, Professor Manas Mahapatra, he is an expert in welding. So they work on lot of CFD and FEM analysis of welding using software. We also do our own study, but we focus more on the fundamental aspects, how to develop new models for welding or casting, and they work on using those models, like already available commercial models for applications. Okay, so similarly, this is a very important area. So the senior students already know that there are other important areas like 3D printing. Okay, 3D printing of both plastics as well as like polymers as well as metals. So in 3D printing, you melt the substance and then you pour it line by line or plane by plane in a well-designed pattern, so that ultimately you get a 3D object. Okay, so there also how this flow is occurring in that liquid and how the temperature is changing in that liquid once it is solidifying, those are very important. So 3D printing has become a very important area nowadays. It is known as additive manufacturing. A lot of companies have shifted their focus on additive manufacturing. Okay, because this is one of the future areas, like next 20-30 years, this will be one of the focus areas for research. Similarly, micro scale solidification, okay, and other effects at micro scale like micro and nanofluidics. So all these are also very important. Okay, micro scale material processing. This gives us an idea about the strength of the substance. So if you can solve the flow pattern and thermal pattern and some additional equations at micro scale, you can say what will be the microstructure. I guess all of you know, if you are studying materials, what is a microstructure. So we can predict what is a microstructure, and we can predict what is the strength of the material and what will be the defects. And by changing the boundary conditions, we can say whether we'll get better microstructure or not. there are other hundreds of applications of CFD. Okay, new applications as well as traditional applications like casting and welding. So, for example, just recently we are in process of collaboration with Tata Steel. Okay, they are trying to solve some problem they are unable to do, so they have approached me. They want some solution regarding their coating process. They have large scale coating for their steel sheets, which is also some sort of like there is some sort of flow which is going on as well as some sort of phase change which is going on, and they want an expert on this area. So this is another area, like, so I'm just giving the example that there are so many areas which once you go to a company you will understand. Okay, it is not only about casting in a steel plant. So coating technologies also need CFD applications, and they are stuck with that, so they have approached me. So similarly, there are other areas which they are exploring on their own. Okay. Now another important area, nowadays it has become very important. Okay, biomedical applications. So biological applications as well as medical applications. Okay. So for example, what is the flow pattern of blood in the arteries or in the veins? Okay. So somebody wants to design a stent. There is a blockage, and you want to use a stent for that. Okay. So how this stent will change the flow pattern in the artery, that you have to study, and the first step is to develop a CFD model for that. Okay, so then you can do some experimental study, but first step will be to develop a CFD model. Similarly, I have shown a random example taken from the internet, flow pattern in the heart. I also don't know what this lines means, but it is basically velocity pattern with magnitude. Okay, somebody has done some CFD study, but lot of studies are going on in medicals and biological application. Again, here also some students are working in those areas, like say cancer treatment, how to remove a tumor, what is the flow process inside a tumor, okay, cancerous tumor, how to remove those tumor using a laser. So if I use a laser to remove the tumor, what will be the heat transfer, what will be the temperature in the tumor, can I selectively just destroy the malignant cells are the cancerous cells, and without destroying the good cells, can we do that? So this type of research also is very important, and our students are working on this area. Similarly, there are hundreds of other areas, okay, biological. So another example I have shown here is the convection pattern and temperature pattern during say eye surgery using laser. Okay, somebody has done some basic study, we don't know what is actually it means. I'm just showing, like, just to show that these are also some other areas which are very important. Hundreds of areas in biomedical applications. And nowadays what has happened, mechanical engineering is not anymore our traditional mechanical engineering. It has become multidisciplinary. And similarly, all the companies also are shifting focus. For example, I will give the example of GE. So lot of, or say Siemens. So traditional mechanical companies, now they do lot of biomedical applications, okay, and they develop instruments for biomedical applications, say for example a CT scanner, okay, or things like that. So they have to do all these CFD studies, how this will affect, whether it will affect the temperature in the body or not, so things like that. And then there are directly biomedical companies which directly work in these areas, which also are interdisciplinary areas. So they will hire physicists, mathematicians, and biologists, as well as mechanical and materials engineer, computer scientists, if they want to do some, say, optimization study or use artificial intelligence, things like that. Then another traditional area is combustion, right? Chemical reactions, combustion in a reactor, combustion in our automobile engines, combustion in a gas turbine. So this is also, it's well known, and a lot of studies going on in this. How to improve the combustion? So you have, all of you have studied IC engine. You know that the combustion starts from one point and it propagates using this. So there is a flame from which propagates, right? And if we are not careful, there can be secondary flame fronts which can generate out of hotspots and which can cause knocking and other defects. Then soot formation also can be, if the flame propagation is not proper, there can be more soot formation, carbon deposits. Okay, so we have to study with this flame propagation properly, and a lot of CFD groups work in those areas. Okay, how the flame is generated, how it's propagated, where should we put the injection, fuel injection, how much should be the fuel injection. So nowadays fuel injectors have become very complicated. Okay, so this is also another important area. Some other areas which we don't traditionally encounter, but research is going on, are, say for example, marine application. Yes, marine application. Okay, large scale ships. So what is the hydrodynamics around the ships? So that is also important, because these military ships actually can travel at quite large speeds. You will be like surprised to see that large scale aircraft carriers also can travel at 60 km/h or very high speeds. But the drag is so high, so they have to be very optimized. The design has to be very optimized. Okay. Oil and gas rigs. Okay, so a lot of things are there in oil and gas industries like Shell or say Schlumberger. So these are some industries which work on oil and gas. So what is the flow through the pipeline? So again, there are a lot of projects even our faculty are doing in those areas, like whether there are deposits in the pipeline in long term which are harmful, which blocks the pipeline, how to remove these deposits, what is the flow pattern in long distance. So you have long distance pipelines which carry oil from one place to another, say hundreds or thousands of kilometers long, and there are pumps in between, so flow to the pumps. Then there you have offshore oil rigs like this. So we have to study the stability, because this is standing in water which is say 100 or 200 meters deep, and there is lot of force on this. So if it is not properly designed, it can it can get damaged. So all these things, okay, flow around a drill bit. So this is another important industry. Similarly, nowadays, last few years, sports has also become a very important industry for CFD. Okay, previously it was not so. Previously, sports was only like the entire development was based on empirical study. Like you are, say for example, you are an athlete, you are running, and by practice you are going to improve. And if you are trying new shoes, you will try it out and see whether you can improve the timing of your running. So if you are a sprinter, you can say that with this new shoes I am improving, or whether with a new swimming costume you are improving your swimming time or not. Nowadays we don't only rely on those. Okay, so a lot of CFD study goes on towards improvement of performance in all these important areas like swimming, athletics. Okay, different areas of sports. You can think about even areas like say uh, football or something. So how you design the, or golf, how you design the golf ball, all this actually, can we improve the design of the golf ball or the football? So all this needs CFD studies, how to generate more lift, more deviation. Okay, so more swing. So all these things. And actually there have been big scale breakthroughs which needed to be like, so for example, in swimming, one costume was developed a few years back. I don't know whether you follow swimming or not. I don't remember exact date, maybe 2009 or 10, sometime like that, which was drastically better than all whatever was there till then. Okay, full body costume. And by using that, all the world records were being broken. So ultimately it had to be banned. Okay, because it was giving so much uh, advantage to the athletes that it had to be banned, and nowadays it is not used. So you will see that lot of swimming records are from that time, 2009, or I forgot the period. Okay, nowadays only they are getting broken, but lot of records were generated at that time, and this type of developments are still being done. Okay. So these are some of the areas. I will just finish these slides with a few more slides. Okay, then we will take a short break. Almost 1 hour is over. Any questions?
No, sir.
So we have seen what are the advantages of CFD previously. Okay, I did not write it as advantage. I have written it as why CFD is used. Like we have seen that in many cases experiments cannot be done or analytical solution is not possible. So all those are the advantages of CFD. But there are some limitations also. Okay, so CFD, you should know, it's not like something has come from God and everything can be solved using CFD. It's not like that, right? So what are these limitations? If we do not understand the limitations, we will just use CFD tools like a black box. Okay, we'll just give some input to ANSYS. Many people do like this. Hundreds of projects I have seen in many colleges in India and abroad who are solving some CFD problem, showing some junk results. Okay, so you should not do like this. You have to understand that there are limitations, and because of these limitations, maybe this problem is not possible to solve at all with the assumptions that I have taken. It's not that if I just keep on trying randomly, I will get correct results. Maybe the limitations is too much for that problem. Okay. So one of the limitation is limitation of the physical model itself. Okay. Maybe the physics is too complex. So I want to solve the how lightning is generated during storms. Okay, so you have a large scale storm and large scale formation of cumulonimbus clouds, and in between lightning is generated. The physics is too complex. I cannot solve it using CFD. Okay, you cannot predict. So you have to solve complex flow pattern, large scale turbulence, small scale turbulence, formation of droplets, okay, evaporation of droplets, dispersion of charge, electrical charge. Okay, so electrical charge is also another field that can be solved using CFD. So lot of things are there. Okay, then turbulent equations. So many things are there. It is not possible, and so many scales. So starting from very small scales to scales like kilometers long. So this problem is so complex that you cannot predict. You cannot use CFD. Okay, but maybe at small scale I can predict when a cloud can form. Okay, with lot of approximation, I can give a vague idea. Okay, that cloud can form, or maybe I can give a vague idea. Okay, that cyclone will form and it will travel in this path based on CFD analysis. That okay, this is the flow pattern in the cyclone right now. So after 1 hour, this will be the flow pattern in the cyclone. So you will see that lot of predictions were there recently when the cyclone was there in Orissa and Bengal. Okay, and they give a error range also, that maximum deviation on the left side will be this, maximum deviation on the right side will be this. Okay, so based on their accuracy of the CFD model, they can give nowadays, the models have become quite good. You can give predictions which are quite accurate. Okay, so after 1 day, what will be the position with some error, with some deviation. Those are still possible to solve, but there are limitations. Okay, then physics of very small problems. I want to solve something at the nano level. So what we have not discussed till now is that whatever we have, whenever we use this computational methods in thermal or fluids, we use some assumptions like continuum assumptions. We assume that individual molecules do not have any effect. Okay, always it is like a continuity. You know what is continuum assumption in BTech you have studied. Okay, so if you take a small volume also, very small volume, then also I will see a continuous medium. Okay, if I take an infinitesimal volume also, I will see a continuous medium, that everywhere it is in air with constant density. I will not consider that there are molecules of oxygen and molecules of nitrogen separately present there. Okay, or molecules of water vapor present there. That I cannot consider in CFD. Okay, so that is another limitation. Okay, if I go to very small scales, if our continuum assumption is will not be sufficient, right? Because the effect of individual atoms will become very large. Okay, many cases are there like this. Even at larger length scales also, say at microscopic scales, Brownian motion. Brownian motion is strongly affected by individual atoms, movement of individual atoms, right? You know already. So if we cannot account for that properly, our CFD model will not be correct. So we use some ad hoc method for solving Brownian motions. So if you see some CFD models from Brownian, you will see that some statistical models are used. Okay, because you cannot. So averaging is used. Similarly, for turbulence, lot of averaging is done because still this turbulence is an open problem. You cannot actually resolve how this like flow pattern will happen. Like although lot of progress have been done in last 20-30 years, still it is an open-ended problem. This is one limitation of the physical model itself. Okay, without, if the physical model is not amenable to CFD solution, there is no point in going further. You cannot solve using CFD. We have to stop and we have to find some other solution. Either the problem itself is not solvable, like the case of lightning that I was giving. So when will lightning form and when will it strike? Or it can be solved using experiments. For example, a very small nanoscale problem, you can solve using experiments nowadays using proper experimental setup, high-end experimental setup. Then there is a second limitation. Okay. So because we are using numerical methods to solve the equations instead of analytical methods, there is always some error. Okay. And as we will study later, there are mainly two sources of error. One is known as round of error. Most of you know what is round of error, right? Round of error is that when you are solving an equation, you cannot take all the values, like all the digits of a variable value, right? For example, if I have a value 1/3, when I am numerically solving, my calculator or computer, or even if I am doing hand calculation numerically, I have to write 1/3 as 0.3333 like this. Okay, I cannot indefinitely take like infinite number of threes, so I have to stop somewhere. So a computer may stop after 16 digits, like 0.3333 like this up to 16 digits, or it may stop after 8 digits. Okay, so always there is some inaccuracy. So 1/3 is not equal to 0.3333 up to 8 digits. Okay, in the 9 digits there is an error. So this type of error is known as round of error, because you are rounding off because of the limitation of representation. You cannot represent this exactly, so you are rounding off. You may think that it's a very small error, but there are some nice examples that can be shown. Okay, maybe, so I said I'm going to teach you MATLAB. In MATLAB, I will show you one case how round of error drastically increases, and you may think that round of error is of the order of 10 to the power minus 16 for my computer, but suddenly it becomes so high that you get large scale error. Okay, this can happen by accumulation of round of error, but okay, we will discuss later when we will study about round of error. But this is an important source of error. This we cannot eliminate in numerical method. There is another source of error, again many of you already know, which is known as truncation error. So when you solve an equation numerically, you have to use some algorithm. Okay, you have to use some assumption. So for example, for calculating derivative, you may use some assumptions that, okay, like an infinite series. So for an infinite series, you cannot take infinite number of terms. You can only take a finite number of terms, and you have to ignore the rest of the terms. So this removal of the rest of the term causes something called truncation error. You are truncating your equation. This also we'll study in depth later on. Okay, this can be removed totally at the limit that your grid size becomes infinitely small. Okay, in real life we cannot remove it totally, but theoretically it is possible to remove totally if your grid size is infinitely small. Okay, this truncation error. Then there are errors also. Then there are limitations, sorry, from the point of view of initial and boundary conditions. Okay, so our boundary condition itself may not be appropriate, or it is too difficult to give a boundary condition. That may also happen. And in that, or too difficult to give an initial condition, then also the problem is not solvable. You might have to give a very approximate boundary condition or initial condition, right? So for example, so much things are occurring that you know how much is the radiation. So for example, again I will give that cloud formation because it's a very complex problem. There is also radiation from the cloud. So maybe it is too difficult to give that, or the initial condition itself for the cloud or for the electricity density for calculation of the electric discharge is too difficult to give. You cannot give that. So maybe you have to give some approximate boundary and initial conditions. Okay. Even other for applications like say normal applications like welding. Okay. So boundary condition is not so easy. If you think about it, welding, what is happening? If we go back to this welding example, you are putting some liquid, you are pouring some liquid, or a small droplet of liquid is there, which is put from a solid stick, which has been melted using arc melting or something like laser melting. Okay. Now the liquid is solidifying. So what should be the boundary condition at the top? There is heat removal from the top. So there is convection, convective heat transfer from the top. There is radiation from the top because it's at high temperature. Okay. So these are the temperature condition. But what happens because of very high temperature, some vaporization will also occur. Some of the, say if it is aluminum, some of the aluminum will get vaporized. How much vaporization is occurring, it is too difficult to predict. But you need, because you need to give that boundary condition in the flow equation, because your flow will be affected by the rate of vaporization at the top. It's like a negative source, like some amount of flow is going out from the top because of vaporization. But you cannot appropriately give that boundary condition. So what do? We assume that there is no vaporization or something like that, so that we get an approximate solution which is still acceptable for us. Okay, so we will take a break here. If there is any questions, you can ask or ask after the break. 5 minutes break, and I will again join after 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. So I am back. We'll continue. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, everyone doesn't have to reply. Yeah. So before finishing, I just wanted to show you, before going into the actual theory, I just wanted to show you some of the work that actually we are also doing here on CFD. Okay, just to give you a glimpse of what can be done even like here. Means I am showing my work, but all many other faculty are also working in these areas. This has become particularly important nowadays because of this COVID-19, because experimental work has become difficult. So I will just show you some of the work from our group, just to highlight that we can also here in IIT Bhubaneswar can do quite good work, which is industrially important also, and important from research point of view, and gets published in good papers. Okay. So for example, this is one of the work which one of my PhD students have done, and as I was saying, microstructure prediction. So how the temperature changes. So you have a liquid and it solidifies. So you know that at microscopic scale, if you have studied material science, you know that at microscopic scale, solidification is not uniform. Ultimately, you have something called grains, and there are something called grain boundaries. Okay, that you must know from materials. Okay. So what happens is that small nuclei forms of solid, and then the solid grows, and there is temperature change along this removal of latent heat, then flow that is generated around this solid particles which are known as dendrites. So flow around the solid particles, everything is important. So it's a multi physics problem where you have flow is very important. Flow determines what will be the shape of these particles, and also temperature boundary conditions determine what will be the shape of the particles and what is the phase change also. So these things can be predicted by writing code in CFD code basically, which will solve flow equations, Navier-Stokes equations, as well as energy conservation equations, which we are going to study later. And ultimately, you get results which are exactly similar to experimental results, which can give you grains and grain boundaries like this. So if you take a metallic piece, like an aluminium piece, polish it and put it under a microscope, you will see that you get grains and grain boundaries like this. Obviously not colored, but the structure is similar. Okay, and we can also predict like if more complex situations are there, like alloys, aluminium, copper alloys. So what will be the variation of copper? Like for example, this red region shows that more copper is present. Green region shows that less copper is present. So all this, for example, these red regions are more copper. Like this type of problems can be tackled. Although these are very complex problems, and these are very important for industries. Actually, same type of problems we used to do. I used to work in General Electric. So there in GE we used to solve similar problems for gas turbine blades. So what will be the microstructure in gas turbine blades? So there is a team which works on CFD analysis of gas turbine blades from the materials point of view. Okay, not from the cooling. So there is another team which works on cooling. So this type of problems, models, there also we develop. Okay. Similarly, what is the effect of flow on a single dendrite? Things like that, and you can see that how we can also get very complex result. What is complex dendritic shape? So this is actually, if you do nowadays, it's possible to do use X-ray while actual welding or casting is going on, and you get to see that the actual particle looks like this with lot of branches. These are known as dendrites, and we can also predict what is the effect of flow, things like that. Similarly, other types of microstructure. Then another very important area, as I was saying, is additive manufacturing. So what is the effect of laser? So if you put a laser on top, how the melting is occurring, and then if you remove that laser, how the solidification is going on. So because of laser, there is melting, and you remove the laser. So once the laser gets removed, there is solidification and you get a grain structure like this. Same thing for moving laser, which is important for additive manufacturing. So you have laser which is going from left right to the right side, and accordingly what is happening, melting from the left and solidification from the right, and you get a final structure like this. So for different laser power or different types of laser or different laser laser diameter, laser like the radius of the laser beam, different beam diameter will give different microstructure, and this can be predicted. And if you do it line by line, it will give you a 3D printed structure while in the modeling also. Another area which I am working, which many of my students, MTech students already are working on, is and again this has become very important nowadays, is energy related work. Okay, so energy related means any way you can save energy. So basically renewable energy. Instead of using conventional sources of energy like using fossil fuels, you want to use solar energy or wind energy. Okay, so things like that, or geological energy, wave energy. So for many cases, so there also there is a lot of application of CFD, but what we focus is on how to store that energy using thermal methods, using phase change, and there we have done a lot of work, as you can see. So this is like a hybrid thermal energy storage system, which have both metal and something called phase change material, which melts during heating, and by melting it absorbs a lot of latent energy and it remains in a molten state. And when you need the energy, you cool it and this heat is removed and you get the energy and it will become solid. Okay, and the metal is present so that the heat is quickly transferred to the interior region. So this type of problems also we can solve. Okay. So with this introduction, we will now move into the our actual subject. Okay. Any questions? I have uploaded this. You can check whether later on whether you can download this. I have uploaded every class. I will upload this text files, PDF files for the class notes, as well as if there is any slides. Okay, so I have uploaded today already before the class. So our first topic was basic conservation equation. Okay, just we will have a revision. Everybody knows what are the conservation equations. You have read in second year or third year of BTech. What is like fluid flow equation? What are the fluid flow equations? Why we want to study again? We want to. There are different forms of these equations. We want to put them in similar form so that you know, like the main idea is that you know that there are different forms of fluid flow equation, Navier-Stokes equation, Euler equations, things like that, even simpler from Bernoulli equation. But for CFD solution, if we want to develop a particular algorithm, it is easier if we put all the equations in a similar form. Okay. So to streamline this process, we want to again go through. Yes. To streamline this process, we want to go through this these equations again once, just to revise, like remind ourselves of what are the equations, and we know that from here onwards, like moving into future, we are going to use this form of the equations only. Okay. So if there are any questions, you can also ask through the chat. Okay, I will monitor the chat window. Sometimes it is easier for me to answer in that. So till now, is there any question? Excuse me. So basic conservation equations. So what are the important equations that we need in our computational methods of thermal and fluid flow? We need At the very least, we need mass conservation equation, momentum conservation equations, which is the flow equation basically, and energy conservation equation. Okay. These are the three fundamental equations we need. Mass conservation, which we also which you know as continuity equation. Momentum conservation equation. There are different forms of momentum conservation. We will go with a simplified Navier-Stokes form. Okay, it can be much more complicated also. We will not go into those details. And energy equation. Then there are other conservation equations. For example, for chemical species, any species. Okay, I will explain later. Then there can be for say turbulence. Then if there is some electric field. So all those we also have similar forms of equation. We will not go into details. But if you have projects later on in those areas, you will know that you can use the same type of algorithm for solving those equations also. Okay, similar type of equations. These basic conservation equations are based on fundamental principles of conservation. Okay, so we know that some of the things are conserved in nature. Okay, for example, Newton's law tells us that momentum is conserved. Okay, first law of thermodynamics tells us that energy is conserved. So these are the basic fundamental laws based on which this conservation equation is defined. Okay, mass conservation equation also is a fundamental basic principle. We are going to ignore that mass can be converted to energy here, like for nuclear problems or other problems. We will assume that mass is conserved. There is no change of mass into energy or energy into mass. Okay. For normal engineering applications, it is not required. The change of mass is so small that it is trivial. So it is not so important. So let us see what is the mass conservation equation. So we will study the differential form. So all the CFD algorithms are based. So there are two forms of equations, right? Integral forms and differential form. Either you can write the equation for a large domain, like you have a volume, entire volume. You write the conservation for the entire volume using an integral form, or you write it for a very small, infinitesimal area. Okay, like for example, this small area. You take a small area where each side is of length dx, dy, dz, which is very small. Okay. So in that case, for that case also, for this small control volume also, even if dx, dy and dz is very small, infinitesimal, still the fundamental conservation laws will hold true. Remember that assumption is still there, that it has to be continuum. Okay. Even if we are assuming that it is infinitesimal, I cannot assume that there are separate atoms. Then we cannot use our equations, these equations. Okay. But obviously in real life, if you go to a very small volume, you will have atomistic behavior and you cannot use our normal CFD algorithms. So there is a limitation. So where below which you should not use, and this will depend problem. Okay, you cannot say that okay, below 1 micron I cannot use CFD problem. It is not like that. In some cases micron you cannot use. In some cases maybe below 100 micron you cannot use. Okay, so this is the type of thing. So anyway, we were digressing. Let us come back to this. So the differential form is developed, as you know, assuming a very small control volume and then doing the balances, mass balance, momentum balance, things like that, force balance, basically force balance and energy balance. What is the energy going out, coming out? What is the energy going in? If there is any heat generation or not? What is the flow going in? What is the flow going out? If there is any accumulation of mass inside or not? Mass can also accumulate, right? If there is more mass coming in, it can accumulate. So things like that. So based on this, this is the differential form of the equation that we are going to use. Del rho del t plus del dot rho u. U is in the vector form. Okay, u has components, say u, v and w. U in the x direction, v in the y direction, and w in the z direction, where x, y, z are the three directions in Cartesian coordinate system. Similar things can be done also for radial or cylindrical coordinate systems. Sorry, spherical or cylindrical coordinate system. But we are just focusing here on Cartesian coordinate system. But similar equations can be developed. So here I have shown that u is in the x direction, y in the, so it's u has become opposite. U should be in this direction. Okay, arrow is wrong. Arrow should be in the other direction. V is in the y direction, W is in the z direction. U arrow is wrong. U arrow should be in the opposite direction, in the x direction. So which also we can, you already know, again I am just repeating, I can write this u as u of ui plus vj plus wk, okay, where u, v and w are the three components of velocity. This del, what is this del? This is known as del or gradient or nabla. This symbol is known as nabla. This is actually the gradient vector, del x of I, del y j, del z k. So if you multiply the del dot, if you take a dot product with u, you know that you will get del u del x plus del v del y plus del w del z. So all the components in the correct direction, so x components, y components and z components get multiplied and added. Already you should know all these things. In case you don't know, you just revise or you try to remember these things later on. So this is the mass conservation or continuity equation in general form with varying density and in 3D form or 2D form, whatever you can write like this. The first term del rho del t, what does it represent? It represents the accumulation or loss of mass in the system. Okay. So basically, if you have a small control volume like this, if there is any change, it means that some accumulation of mass is occurring here. If it is increasing or if it is decreasing, this term is decreasing, negative, sorry. It means that there is some decrease in mass that is occurring. If there is no change in mass with time, then this term is zero. Okay. So it represents the accumulation of mass in the system. What does the second term represent? It represents the difference in flow coming in and going out. So there are flow from all the directions. What is the sum total of that? Flow does not mean only velocity, right? What is the flow, like volume of flow? Sorry, mass of flow. Rho into V into delta x delta y, like this you have to calculate. So ultimately based on that you calculate what is the total flow and is there any net flow into the system or net flow out of the system. Okay, if this term is zero, the net flow into and out of the system has to be zero, obviously, because mass is not accumulating. If there is any net flow into or out of the system, it means that there is increase of mass or decrease of mass. Let us try to look at some simplified form of this equation. Any questions? Feel free to ask any question. Okay, don't think that question is too simple or anything related to this. You should ask.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you again explain the second term and the difference in flow coming in and going out of the system?
Okay. No, I did not go into the details because we have to then derive it and I don't want to do it here. But I just wanted to tell you that what this term represents, this del dot rho u term, this term represents, so say you have a control volume like this, okay. So there is flow coming into the system, like for example, if you see in the x direction, there will be some velocity in the x direction, right? So what is the flow coming in from the, I cannot show you correctly here, but imagine that this surface, from this side the flow is coming, okay. So what is the surface area of that surface? Delta y into delta z. If delta y and delta z are the length in the y and z direction, okay. Delta y into delta z into rho into u is the flow that is the mass flow that is coming in from that side, right? So similarly, you can calculate the mass flow rate from all the sides, whatever is coming in and whatever is going out. And if you add all this, it will give you a net flow in or flow out. Okay. Then after some algebraic manipulation, you can get this term. Basically, you can divide by delta x, delta y, delta z to get this form of the equation. Okay, so it is very easy to derive. You can try on your own, but that is the idea, that this term represents the difference in or the net flow that is coming into the system or going out of the system. Okay, so this entire mass conservation equation is nothing but a balance of the mass that is getting accumulated in the system and mass that is coming in or going out of the system. And that is also logical, right? If you have a bottle, you are filling it, so mass is coming into the system. You know that whatever is coming in, rate of that should be equal to whatever mass change is occurring in that bottle. Same thing is happening here. You can easily derive the equation if you want. You might have already done in fluid mechanics class, okay, based on this control volume.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So in 3D it will look like, so I have written it in 3D. Actually this itself is sufficient, but some of you may get confused by this nabla term or del term. That's why I have written here in 3D. So we can write it as del rho del t plus del x of rho u. Like this term is del x of del y of rho b plus del z of rho w equal to 0. Okay, where u, v and w are the velocity components in x, y and z direction. If which is a steady state problem, steady state means this term is not present. This term is known as transient term or unsteady term. This term is not present. Okay, it means that there is no change with time, and the only time variable comes here in this term, right? There is no change with time. This variable becomes 0, like this. This term becomes 0. You are left with only. Okay. So del dot rho u equal to 0. Rho can still change even if there is no variation with time. Rho can still change with space, right? Rho can, say you have a mixture of oil and water, a random mixture. So at one place the rho may be more depending on whether more water is there. In another place rho may be less if more oil is there, right? So rho can still change even in steady state case also. Excuse me. So again you can write this in 2D or 3D or whatever 1D form. And if it is a constant density problem, even if rho is also not changing, then we write it as the well-known form del dot u is equal to 0, which is del u del x plus del v del y plus del w del z equal to 0 for 3D. And also you know 2D and 1D, del u du dx equal to 0 for 1D. Okay, this is our well-known form, okay, which we will use for starting our CFD calculation later on. Constant density and steady state. Any question on this continuity equation? Then we will go. So generally I tell all the students to not memorize any equation or anything in any of the courses, but for practical application, in this case I will make an exception. So I will tell that you should try to memorize the general form of the continuity, momentum and energy conservation equation, because this will always be required anywhere you go. Okay, always people will ask you, even in interviews or everywhere or any problem, you will encounter this form of the equations. So whatever we are studying, this continuity, momentum and energy equation, better to remember, better to memorize this. This is a very fundamental equation, and it's not difficult to remember. You just have to know what are the terms. So we will see that there is structure to everything. So next equation is the momentum conservation equation, again in differential form. Okay, so this comes from the flow or momentum balance. Okay, basically this comes from Newton's law at the fundamental level, that momentum is conserved. So what does this equation? Again, we will not go into derivation. These things have been taught in fluid mechanics classes, and it is not required also for our class how this has been derived. We only want to know what are the terms and what is its importance. So we have 4 terms. The unsteady term, del t of rho u. Then we have a convective term. This is second term is known as convective term, del dot rho u. Both u's are vectors. Okay, slightly confusing. This is slightly tricky. both u's are vectors. Then del dot mu del u, gradient of u. Mu is the viscosity. Minus gradient of p. For the momentum conservation, we have surface, any other surface forces also will have similar type of treatment. Gradient of p. Pressure. Sorry, no. Only for the pressure. Okay, we have any other body forces we can include in a separate term or a source term like B. So what are body forces? Some examples. Gravity is a body force, right? Can you give some other examples of body forces?
Electrostatic forces.
Yes. Then centrifugal force.
Surface tension.
That can be
Inertia.
defined as a body force or a surface force. Surface tension is a tricky thing. Okay. Surface tension actually is a surface force, but while solving CFD problems, we generally change it to body force sometimes for solving in some. But centrifugal force is a body force. Okay. Electrostatic force or electromagnetic force, all these are body forces. And everything can be accumulated in this term, in the standard format. There are other ways of denoting this. You might have asked, last time student have asked, like they know that u dot form, like there is another form, u dot del rho u. Okay, that form of the equation is also there. And that can be easily derived from this form using the continuity equation. We will be using this form, but remember that there is another form. For example, the x direction, I can take one u outside, u del x of rho u. Okay, this type of form can be easily derived using the continuity equation and doing some algebraic manipulation. Means you use the you multiply the continuity equation by u and then subtract the terms and you will get the other form of equation. Okay, but we will focus on this general form. In 3D, we will have three equations. Okay, because we have these two u terms here. Okay, actually it's like a matrix. So you have three equations. What are the three equations? In x direction, we have del t of rho u. This already you know. I will just repeat. Del x of rho u plus del y of rho vu. This first u, the terms are changing. Okay, rho vu plus del z of rho wu. Second u terms, the second u, and for all the other u's, the terms will change with the equations. Okay, for this first equation x direction, this u, and this u, all this are just state the velocity component for the x direction, which is u. Okay, so you have three terms here. Then you have del x of mu del u del x plus del y of mu del u del y del z of mu del u del z minus gradient of p in the x direction, which is del p del x, plus any body force if this is present in x direction. Body force can have directions, so it will be dependent. For example, gravity can be in the negative y or negative z direction. So accordingly, we can define our equation. Similarly, I have not written here to save time, but you can define y and z equations. So the entire set of three equations will be our momentum equation or Navier-Stokes equation. Okay. In that case, there are a lot of assumptions it has been taken. I have not going into details, which is part of fluid mechanics or advanced fluid mechanics. How these things are derived means there are even more general form of the momentum conservation equations. After some simplification, you get this form. Actually, this comes from, you know how this comes? This comes from balance of shear stress, like shear forces, body forces, things like those, right? So basically, change in momentum is due to forces. So you have to balance the change of momentum due to forces. So from that is the fundamental principle from which these terms have evolved. But we will not go into those details. So after some simplification only, you get this Navier-Stokes form. If in more complicated problems, you might have noticed that instead of viscosity and like this, you might have to write in terms of shear stress itself. Okay, those who have done the course or will be doing, I think, in next semester, transport phenomena, MTech first year students. If MTech second year students are there, they have done the course already. There we have seen some equations where we cannot use this form because of non-Newtonian flow. Viscosity is not constant and we have to go to more fundamental equation, more general equation with where we cannot write viscosity in this form. Okay, we have to write in forms of shear stress. But don't worry about those things in this course. So for example, if I take a 2D case, 2D problem where y direction is the vertical direction, x direction is the horizontal direction, I will have and ignore all the other body forces and only we assume that there is gravity. So gravity will be in the towards the bottom, which will be the negative y direction, right? So we will have the same type of equations. X equation, I am not repeating, is the same equation like this. Okay, but the z components are now missing. And y momentum equation also similarly it's got cut out here while scanning. Okay, there is a term del p del y minus rho g. Okay, del p del y minus rho g. So once my that writing pad comes up, I can write here also. That we are waiting for that still. So anyway, so for this just an example, if you have y direction gravity in the negative y direction, you will have the body forces minus rho g. Similarly, any other body forces also you will later know how to tackle, like centrifugal force or electromagnetic forces. Then any questions? So you should remember this. If you remember this form of the equation with these 4 terms: transient term, convective term, diffusive term, and these 2, pressure and this, you should be able to derive all these equations, any of these equations. Okay. Almost similar in form is also the energy conservation equation. Okay. It is also almost similar in form, and this is fundamentally this is derived from balance of energy. Okay. The fundamental principle is first law of thermodynamics. So whatever is the energy increase or decrease in a domain, it will depend on how much energy is coming into the domain and how much energy is going out of the domain, and whether any energy is generated in the domain or not. So the form of the equation that we are going to use is this form. Okay, general form, where the transient term is del t of rho h, where h is the enthalpy, rho already you know density. I will discuss h later. This, what does this transient term, what does it represent? It represents how much change in energy is occurring in the domain. Okay, you have a domain, you have a volume, small volume. How much change in energy is occurring there, and how that change in energy can occur? Energy can come in with some flow. So some fluid is coming into the domain. So obviously it will carry some energy with it, right? So what is that quantity of energy? That is given by the second term, or the second term represents that, okay, in differential form, del dot rho uh. Okay. So this is the energy. Again, you can derive all this using this simple control volume and doing energy balance. And then you have to do some algebraic calculation. You have to divide all the sides by delta x, delta y, delta z, and you will get this differential form of the equations. Okay. For example, I will just state this term. Change in energy actually for that small control volume is del t of rho h into the volume. Volume is delta x into delta y into delta z. Okay, that is the actual change in energy. But later when we divide by delta x, delta y, delta z, it comes into this differential form. Similarly, all the other terms also will come. So not only with flow, the energy can come because of conduction also, right? Conduction is known as diffusion in general. Okay, so thermal diffusion is known as conduction, but the process diffusion process is applicable in many cases. So in general, it is called as diffusion. Okay, so it can come without flow. If there is no flow at all, still we know that some heat will come inside. Okay, some energy will come inside because of conduction. So that is taken care of by this diffusive term or conductive term. And even if these 2 things are not there at all, still the energy can change in the domain, because there may be a source term. Say for example, there is some combustion is going on inside the domain. Okay, or some electrical wire is there which is generating some heat. How will you tackle that? So that extra energy that is generated in the domain will obviously increase the energy of the domain that is given by the source term here. Any extra source of energy, whether positive or negative, can be tackled using this source term. This is almost similar in form in this equation except this gradient of pressure term. Okay, there is no equivalent term in the energy equation similar to the pressure gradient. Okay, that is unique for the momentum equation, and as those who have done courses with me already know, CFD courses, and others will learn later, this actually causes huge problem while solving momentum equation because there is no separate equation for this, and you need to configure the continuity equation somehow to solve this term or to cater to this term. Okay, so those things we will discuss towards the end of the course. So now what is this H? Okay, H is the enthalpy. Enthalpy is the energy content of a fluid when it is flowing per unit volume or per unit mass in this case. Sorry, we will represent it per unit mass, kilojoule per kg. Okay. So if it is a problem which only involves sensible heating, like a conduction, convection problem, but there is no phase change, like either it is only solid or only liquid or only gas, then we can write H as Cp into T or Cp into T minus some T difference. If I take T difference as absolute 0, I can write as Cp into T. Okay. And then I can put the value of H here as Cp into T, and you will get a more familiar equation in terms of temperature. You have already studied temperature equation, energy conservation equation in terms of temperature. Okay, rho Cpt plus del dot rho u Cpt plus del dot k del T plus Sh. However, if there is any phase change like melting, solidification, boiling, condensation, okay, evaporation, then enthalpy, in the enthalpy we should also account for changes in latent energy, because two different phases will have different latent energy at the same, two different phases have different energy at the same temperature, right? So for example, ice and liquid water at 0 degree centigrade, ice has less energy as compared to liquid water, and you know what is the difference? It is the latent heat of melting. You know it as latent heat of melting. Okay. Similarly, liquid water and steam at 100 degree centigrade both can exist, but there is a difference in energy. The steam has much more energy, okay, as compared to the liquid water at 100 degree, and that difference in energy is the latent heat of vaporization. So this also should be part of the energy, and then we write this H as Cp into T plus some volume fraction or mass fraction, sorry, not volume fraction, mass fraction into latent heat. What does this mass fraction represent? It represents how much of this control volume is one phase and how much of it is the other phase. For example, I will give an example of a solid melting problem. Okay, you have solid which is getting melted, and there is convection also in the melting, during the melting. So what is happening? Initially, if there is solid at any temperature, what will be the enthalpy? What will be the enthalpy? Solid has lower enthalpy than liquid, right? So for the solid, if I take Fl as mass fraction of liquid, this term will become 0. Okay, if you don't understand, please let me know, I will repeat. Fl is the mass fraction of liquid. So if it is fully solid, any control volume is fully solid, it means that Fl is 0. So this term is 0. So the energy content at temperature T is Cp into T. Okay. If a control volume is fully liquid at the same temperature, what will be its energy content? So if it is fully liquid, what is the mass fraction of liquid? It is 1. So it will be Cp into T plus L. And this is logical, right? We know that at the same temperature, the energy of the liquid should be higher than the energy of the solid by the amount L, where L is the latent heat of melting in that case. Okay. And in between, say you have 50% solid and 50% liquid, then the energy of that control volume should have 50% of latent heat, right? Because 50% is liquid and rest of the 50% do not have any latent heat. So rest of it is ignored. So you have 0.5 of L, 0.5 into L. So this is the general form of the enthalpy term. And for simple sensible equations like sensible heating, because Yes.
Sir, if it is for vaporization,
Yes.
the one mass fraction here FL we have denoted, it will be like vapor fraction. Yes.
Yes. Correct.
And if it is, sir, if initially if we have like let's say half vapor and half liquid, and
Yes.
if we take this CPT, H is equal to CPT plus mass fraction of vapor plus into latent heat of vaporization. In
Yes.
CPT, does it include both initial is volume fraction into latent heat of vaporization will be considered like amount of energy involved in uh, transformation, or it is with vapor?
I'm not sure about your question, but first let me explain again, and then we will discuss. Okay. So, what is your name? Who was
So
speaking?
this is Guru Prahalad.
Okay. 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 Guru. Yes. Yes. Good. It's actually very good point you have raised. Okay. I was going to miss that. So, whenever you define enthalpy, whenever you define enthalpy, there is no fixed or absolute value of enthalpy. Okay, it is with respect to some reference value. Okay, why this reference is important? I will come to your point later on. Okay, but first let me explain. So it is in terms of some reference value. So for example, for this case, what I was explaining, we are taking the reference value of that in solid the latent heat is 0. Okay, so from that reference point, in the liquid the latent heat is L. Okay, latent heat of melting. Okay, CPT is the sensible heat. CPT does not have any component of latent energy. Okay, it is also with respect to some reference. I can also could have written it as CPT minus Tref and solve the same equation. You will get the same result. Everywhere there will be CPT minus Tref. That Tref will be constant and any derivative of Tref will get cancelled. Okay, so Cp into T is only the sensible energy, whether it is solid or liquid. Now there is a point that Cp of solid and Cp of liquid may be different. Okay, in this case you have to consider that up to what temperature it was solid. So Cp of say Cp into T of T melting temperature up to melting temperature solid, Cp into T melting plus Cp of solid into T melting plus Cp of liquid into T minus T melting. Is it clear what I am explaining here? What
Yes,
will
sir.
be the sensible energy? Sensible energy of solid is the total energy from the reference state, which let us consider at absolute zero. From absolute zero, I don't know whether, yeah, from absolute zero to melting temperature, it is solid. So Cp of solid we have to consider for that range. So Cp of solid into T minus Tref, where Tref is 0. So Cp of solid into T plus Cp of liquid into T minus Tm. Okay. So because this extra, like say the temperature at this present moment is 50 degrees centigrade. So up to 0 degree centigrade, we have to consider Cp of solid. From 0 degree to 50 degree, we have to consider Cp of liquid. Okay. This is how you have to account for the Cp value and sensible heat. For latent heat, that is totally different. Latent heat does not come into picture in this first term. Latent heat will only depend on whether it is liquid or solid. Okay. And what is the reference state? I could have also represented this in another form. I can take the reference state as liquid, right? Liquid has 0 latent heat. That also I can say. There is no harm in saying that. In that case, what will be the latent heat of solid? It should be minus L, because solid has lower than liquid, right? So the reference state is liquid latent heat, and if I say that latent heat of liquid is 0, then latent heat of solid has to be minus L. Then I would have written this equation as CPT minus fraction of solid into L. Is it clear what I have defined right now? Any
Sir,
confusion?
can you repeat last sentence? Like
Last
what?
point what I am telling is that the reference of latent heat also is not fixed. Okay, so I can take any reference for defining this latent heat. In this case, what was the latent heat reference? Reference means zero latent heat. What was the reference? Solid state. So I have assumed that whatever is the solid, in solid form it has zero latent heat. Okay, zero latent energy. Only energy is sensible energy. So accordingly, what will be the latent heat of liquid? If I define the latent heat of solid to be zero, it has to be equal to the latent heat of melting. You know what is latent heat of melting, right? You have studied in basic thermodynamics or in I think heat transfer, wherever. So it is the energy required to melt 1 unit mass of solid, right? 1 unit mass of material. So if I define the reference to be solid with zero latent heat, my liquid has latent heat L. However, somebody else, say you can define this liquid to have zero latent heat because there is no fixed reference. I can say that my liquid has zero latent heat. Then I have to define the solid latent heat as minus L, right? And the term will become Cp into T minus Fs, solid fraction, into L. Is this clear now? Because now what is the, if it is fully liquid, this term should not be present because reference is zero. But if it is fully solid, you should have minus L, latent heat, right? So Fs will become 1 and you will have fully solid. Think about it. And then we can have a discussion in the next class also. Okay. We'll finish our class. Let me check. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, about the reference, sir, in general thermodynamics also we wrote that U is equal to CVT or H is equal to CPT.
Yes.
So basically we're taking reference as absolute means 0 or 0 Kelvin, sir.
Some reference. Without reference you cannot define. Okay.
Sir, so that reference is what means energy is completely zero, means enthalpy, or we are considering zero at that reference?
No. We are not considering. We are only considering the differences. Okay, that is the important thing in thermodynamics or heat transfer. This you cannot measure the absolute energy content. Like there is no absolute energy content. You only know the differences in energy. Okay, you only know the differences in energy, at least from this continuum perspective. Okay, so if you go to molecular level, then you can say energy is kinetic energy of molecule, other things. But at this point, so what happens is that when you write any property like enthalpy or what is that other, internal energy, okay, these properties, there is no absolute value for this property. So you have to define somehow, you have to work with them. So you assume some reference state. Okay, if you write it as CPT, you assume that, and if you are taking T as Kelvin, you assume that it is the reference state is 0 Kelvin. Okay, but other may not do it. So for example, I may not do it. I may assume that the reference state is minus 40 degrees centigrade. Many cases it is like that. Or the reference state is 0 degree centigrade, 273 Kelvin. Okay. So in that case, my enthalpy value will be 0 at 0 degree centigrade, but your enthalpy value will be Cp into 273 because at 0 degree centigrade, T is 273. Okay. So we have two different enthalpy values at the same temperature. Your enthalpy value is different because of different energy, and my enthalpy value is different because of different references. Okay. So now the question comes that then all the problems will have different answer. Then you will see that in all the applications, we are just dealing with differences in enthalpy. Okay, not absolute enthalpy. Like say power plant applications you have studied, or any other application, H1 minus H2. Now it does not matter what is the reference I am taking. So if I take 0 degree centigrade at the reference, then H1 minus H2, in both cases, these references will be same and will cancel each other. Similarly, if you take 0 Kelvin as the reference, again for H1 minus H2, both the references will be same and it will cancel each other. So the difference will be same always. And this is also very important point actually you have raised. if you go through thermodynamic tables, you will see that different thermodynamic tables have different values. Okay, because their reference states are different. So you cannot, for a single problem, you cannot take one value from one thermodynamic table, like steam table, one value from another steam table, because their references will be different. Sometimes it is minus 40 degrees centigrade for some reason. Sometimes it is 0 Kelvin, sometimes it is 0 degree centigrade. So accordingly, you should always take all the values from the same table. Then your calculation, the differences will be always equal. If you compare the difference between 0 degree and 30 degree in one case and in the another table, you will see that the differences are same, but absolute values are different. Okay. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Partly, sir. Just one question that
Yes.
if we are doing means we are writing H is equal to CPT, then from the
Yes.
beginning we are finding out actually H2 minus H1 is equal to CP T minus some reference temperature.
No. See, no. If you are writing H as CP, H1 minus H2 will be what? CPT2 H2 minus H1 is CPT2 minus T1. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now instead of that, if you write that, say you are not using absolute zero, you are writing as H as is equal to Cp T minus T ref, where T reference is 100 Kelvin. I am just putting some arbitrary value. Okay. So Cp T minus T ref. So what will be H2? H2 will be
Yes, sir.
Cp T2 minus 100. And what will be H1? H1 will be Cp T1 minus 100. So what will be H2 minus H1? Cp T2 minus T1, because both the Cp into 100 gets cancelled, right? Ultimately, it will be Cp T2 minus T1, however way you write.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, difference is always Cp T2 minus T1. Difference is not going to change. Otherwise, there is big problem. Difference has to be same. So change in sensible energy is always Cp into T2 minus T1. Okay, and we
Yes,
are
sir.
always dealing with changes. There is no absolute value. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank
we
you,
will
sir.
stop here. We have
Sir,
exceeded our time. Yes, please let me know.
Sir, it will be really good if we change back to the morning time rather than this.
Morning is too difficult for me. Give me some other time then.
Uh, there is no other time other than this. Morning was the only option.
Who is it speaking?
Sir, it's me, Yash.
Yes.
Sir, on Monday in evening, sir. Before two, yeah, in between 2 and 3, sir.
So
Might
because this,
On
other
Sir,
Sat-
not in the
on
evening
Monday.
at all. Sometime in the morning.
Sir, if Saturday works,
Saturday works for me. Yes.
Saturday, fine, sir.
yes, sir,
Saturday,
Saturday
what
we
time?
can keep.
But can we keep it at afternoon?
Sir, not Saturday.
Not
sir, can we keep it on weekdays only?
No, not Saturday.
Weekdays I can keep, but I have to keep it in evening or afternoon.
Sir, Saturday.
No, Saturday, no, sir.
So this time, okay.
Otherwise, let us go with
sir,
this time. Okay.
it can be this day
Sir, this
4
time,
to
sir, this
6
time is
or
good.
5.
In
Let us keep
weekdays.
it this way. Okay. Mornings
This
are too busy for me. Every day I have classes, and afternoon I am free. But afternoon, you guys, some of you have classes. I have checked. Like either the BTech group has class or MTech has class. So something like this is happening. So otherwise, afternoon should have been okay for me. Any of the afternoon. Otherwise, we will keep it. We can go somewhat like if you want to start at 5 or 5:30, that is also fine for me.
No, sir. Fine only. 6 to 8.
See, 6 to 8, let us keep it evening. One day only, right? No issue.
So is it really not possible in morning? Because this time is actually really tiring.
Morning not possible. Morning too difficult for me.
Okay, sir, fine.
I don't want to take it in the morning so early. Okay. Class quality will be poor. So morning it would have been okay if it is 11 to 1. So 9 is too early for 9 means I have to prepare even earlier. So class quality will not be so good. Evening is better for me or afternoons. Okay, let us keep
Okay,
it
sir,
this
this
time.
time.
Yes, sir, evening is good.
It's 1 day only. You don't have to wake up early. So just I have to take attendance also. I don't know whether all of you have left or not. I'm supposed to download, but no, I think a lot of you are there. Okay. So please respond. Okay. Manually, I'm taking attendance. Isai Dikshit. Isai Dikshit is there. Shubham Deshpande.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nikhilesh was there. Karthik.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Suraj Vikalahase. Suraj, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just check here. How will I know whether you are some others are not responding?
Yes, sir. I was there.
I have checked it. Paritosh.
Yes, sir.
Paritosh is there. Yes, I
Yes,
can
sir.
see. Aniket, Charjan Aniket.
Present, sir.
Alapan Mandal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Where are you? I am not finding you.
I'm here. This is my voice, sir. Alapan.
Okay, oh, you are here in this side. Yes, is there. Vishnu?
Yes, sir.
You are there.
Yeah.
Mainak is there.
Yes, sir.
Those who are
Yes, sir.
Mainak is there.
Yes.
Prabhat Kumar Mishra is there, right? You can see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shivangsh Das is there. I can
Yes,
see
sir.
your name. Then Alapati Sai.
Yes, sir.
What is your first name? Is it Alapati or Kishan? What is your first name?
Alapati Kishan, sir.
Dhruv Garg. Please mute your. Please mute your mics. Please mute your mics. Dhruv Garg. Mute your mics, please. Dhruv. Dhruv is absent. Sudha Venkata Rajendra.
Yes, sir.
What is your first name?
Kusluri Hruday.
What should I call?
Rajendra. My name, you can call me Rajendra.
Rajendra. Okay. Atul Jyotish.
Present.
Bangaru Ramcharan.
Yes, sir.
What should I call you? Ramcharan or Bangaru?
Ramcharan, sir.
Ramcharan. Suman Hauladar.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First day it is clumsy. Next onwards we will see what can be. Ashwini Kumar.
Present, sir.
Ashwini Kumar. Gaurav Srivastava.
Yes, sir.
Gulshan Kumar. I can see.
Sir,
you are there.
Gaurav. Sir,
Gaurav,
Gaurav.
I have seen you are there. Gulshan Kumar also there. M. Pujari. Madepa Pujari. Pujari.
Sir. Yes,
What
sir.
should I call you? What should I call you? What is your first name? Pujari or Madepa?
Madhyapa, sir. Call me Pujari, sir.
Pujari. Nilesh Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Nilesh Kumar.
Present, sir.
Chintu Sai.
Hello.
Yes, I have heard. Chintu Sai.
Yes, sir.
Chintu Sai. Okay. Then Sudipto Das.
Yes, sir. Sudipto.
Sudipto. Lokesh Saukar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Somesh Harichandran. Somesh. I guess there. Yes. Okay. Thank you. We will have next class on Friday, 11. Okay. Tomorrow we have our gas turbine class for those who are there. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.